And we are live for episode 71 of Trek Live. I want to personally apologize because it was my fault. We started an hour late. I'll just leave it at that. Sorry, guys. Hopefully it won't happen again. But what are we talking about today, Bill?
We're going to talk about, first off, don't feel bad. It's all good. And we're going to talk about The Brightest Star, the short trek that premiered on Thursday night.
Yep.
This might be a little bit of a shorter episode because we're just talking about a short trek. There are a couple little pieces of news that I think might be worth talking about that I kind of want to ask you about real quick. Not a whole lot to dive into because it's not earth shattering or not a whole lot tangible to talk about, but some neat little tidbits. And from there, I guess we'll leave it at that. We're just going to dive into this short,
Okay.
which I think there's a good bit to talk about in it. But first off, have you watched any Trek this week since the last time we were here?
I have. I watched Silicon Avatar and Disaster.
Cool.
Yeah. I love Disaster.
Nice.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, Disaster's a fun one. It's one of those pair crewmen off, pair the cast off, with, unusual, weird groupings. I think they it almost feels like they thought about okay, who are the most unnatural pairings to Picard with kids, and you don't see a whole lot of Geordi and Dr. Crusher one-on-one stuff, and in this episode they're together, which is kind of unusual.
Troy's in command.
Troy's in command with just Ro and
delivering a baby.
Yeah. They definitely want to put everybody in their most uncomfortable sorts of positions. And there's a lot of cool stuff in it. I think the cast is really good. I think Deanna's really good in it. I think all the stuff with her on the bridge with O'Brien and Ro is pretty cool. So glad you like that one. You got some cool stuff coming up with Unification, 2-parter with Spock. That's right around the corner. So be curious to see how that one sits with you on rewatch. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, I finished season 2 of TOS yesterday. So yeah, feel good about that. I watched The Ultimate Computer, which I really like. I think that's kind of a timeless that. There's always something tangible to sink your teeth into with that episode. That's a really good one. An episode that kind of grows on me every time I watch it is Bread and Circuses, which is one of the many Prime Directive parallel Earth kind of stories that you get a lot of, especially in season 2. But Spock and McCoy's bickering and friction is at its peak in that episode. They're really at each other's throats. They don't see eye to eye on the situation at all. They're more antagonistic than usual. And there's this really good scene that I think is probably McCoy's best scene in the whole series, where they're in a prison cell alone, and McCoy kind of dissects Spock, his whole psyche, and talks about how he's so afraid to slip up and how you can live every day just being afraid to show anything, and what that has to do to you. There's really good dialogue, and DeForest Kelly's really good, showing maybe a little different side of McCoy. You obviously get a lot of their bickering and their relationship throughout the show. It leans heavily into that as a whole. But this episode, I think, really spends a lot of time on it and gets to the core of what makes these two people different. And I really like that about it. And there's some really cool stuff about satirizing TV. There's a lot of lines we'll do a special on you in full color, weird, especially from the 60s perspective. I'm sure it was really kind of cool TV commentary. But yeah, so glad to be done season 2 and heading into season 3, I guess. But I'll be starting that hopefully next weekend, and then into the movies and onward. So yeah. Real quick, the one kind of little piece of news that came out of yesterday that I'm not sure if you saw or not is Discovery's season was extended an episode. So now it's 14 episodes instead of 13.
I did not see that.
Yeah, it just it came out, I want to say, like late yesterday afternoon, my time. There was that Starfleet, the Star Trek original series bridge.
I saw that.
Place. Yeah, Shatner was there, and Anson Mount, who plays Pike in season 2 of Discovery, was there for like a big event that they were pushing, and Anson Mount talked about that they extended the season an episode, which they did last year too. So I guess the lesson is, like, both times, season 1 and 2, they initially kind of sold it as this is a 13 episode season, and neither season ended up being 13 episodes. So that tells you that they're open to letting the season be as long as they need it to be. You know, they the studio and, you know, CBS All Access, I guess, is flexible enough to kind of at some point along the line make a decision to spend more money on the show, which is kind of encouraging. So yeah, and that means that the season of Discovery runs from like January 17th through, I think, April 18th, which is a pretty good chunk of time. It's 3 full months of straight new Star Trek, which is a different thing than we had last year. It was like 8 weeks and then like a month and a half off, and then 6 weeks last year for season 1, where this is going to be a more sustained, like, distance run of new stuff, which I'm really looking forward to, because I think it'll feel like it used to feel when it was on kind of network TV, where you had this like extended period with new stuff kind of coming every week. Yeah. So I love the fact that there's not a huge break. Like last year, even last year, it wasn't a huge break. It wasn't like other shows do, where you kind of go away for months on end. Last year, it was like it went away for the holidays and it was back after the new year. But to have 13 straight weeks is going to be 14 straight weeks now. It's going to be pretty neat. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's getting here really close. I mean, it's like 6 weeks away, 5 weeks away now. So, exciting times.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And there were a couple other little things he kind of threw out there. He talked about a big, thrust of the season, I guess, is going to be the Burnham-Pike relationship, which I think kind of drives home that Pike is going to be like very involved in the season. I think we kind of already maybe knew that, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent that Pike is like plays a big part in every episode kind of deal, like Lorca was last year, I guess. So how do you feel about that? I mean, how do you feel about the idea of like Pike being like this like a huge presence in the season?
I love the idea of it. I've always been a fan of Pike, whether it be in Prime Timeline or Kelvin Timeline. I think it should be good. I think it's going to be probably similar to, like you said, last season with, that Burnham and a relationship with a captain or with someone who's, I don't know, in higher command, I guess. Should be interesting. Yeah.
I would imagine that it's going to have something to do with, because I think they've kind of hinted at it in the past, where they've, when they've talked about the season, that Pike is almost serving as a way for Burnham and the crew to like regain trust in like somebody in command. I guess Lorca, the experience with Lorca could lead to a lot of
trust issues, I guess. Yeah,
trust issues. Not having faith in the person at the top, and feeling good about the direction that you're kind of going in. And I think maybe the idea is going to be that Pike kind of breathes the Starfleet life back into the crew. And then, looking forward to season 2 and new Star Trek. But we got a little taste of other new Star Trek this week.
Yes, we did.
With the Brightest Star, the short about Saru, and his background and origin story, I guess. What were your overall impressions? Like, what did you think of this?
I was very impressed. I think taking on a really sci-fi concept, very sci-fi-esque story in 15 minutes can be difficult. Especially when you're working with an origin story.
I
think they nailed it. I think they did a great job with it.
Yeah, it impressed me too a lot. I was a fan. I'm toying with what do I like better, this or Calypso?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
a
torn. They're
discussion.
different. Yeah, like this one, I feel more. I don't know. Like the minute I heard Doug Jones's voice and saw Saru, there was a more emotional connection to this, I guess, because it's a character that we know and love, and it's a story I've been curious about. Like, where did this guy come from? What's his background like? So on that level, this really resonated with me. Where Calypso, from like a just purely like cinematic level, really landed too. So they're a little different, but I love them both for their own reasons. But yeah, I thought from, and not to say this one wasn't cinematic. I thought the production values of this were great. I thought the planet looked really cool.
Yes.
I mean, the production design of that setting, the planet surface of Kaminar, was really well done. It looked lived in and primitive and functional and alien. Like everything about it was cool on that level. I thought the actors who played his family, his sister and his father, were really, really strong, really good. I love that the family dynamic that we got in just brief tastes. It's not a lot of time. We're talking maybe 3 or 4 minutes of screen time with the three of them together. But I thought it really did a nice job of selling the sort of dynamic this family has, and through that, like what life on this planet's like for these people.
Right.
The thing that surprised me was and I'm curious about, and it sounds like we're going to get a little more about it in the season. I've read a couple interviews with the writers, and they acknowledge that questions are raised in this, and that we'll get more answers in season 2. I was surprised by like what the prey predator thing was. Like, what is that? Like, they kind of sacrifice themselves. A bright light shows up and they're gone. Like, what is going on there? That's not really what I expected.
They're going to the mirror universe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, where are they
that's
going?
What first came up. I was like, where are they? Yeah, the mirror universe. Like, what's happening here?
They're going to feed the mirror universe because So I don't know, that was surprising, and I felt cool that I was surprised, and it wasn't exactly what I kind of had in mind. I was more expecting it to be something more traditional, like some sort of presence on the planet, just kind of picking them off. But yeah, there's definitely more to it than I certainly expected, and I'm really anxious to hear more about what sort of thing was it, and like the technology that Saru used to eventually contact Starfleet, I guess. Is technology, like it kind of implies that whatever is hunting them, picking them off, and it's not even really hunting. I mean, they sacrifice themselves to this
willingly.
And it sort of implies that whatever they're sacrificing themselves to is not of that planet. It's a different alien presence of some sort. So it just raises a lot of questions, which I didn't necessarily expect. I expected something more traditional. I expected some sort of, like I said, animal-esque thing that the Kelpians just don't have the means to defend themselves from, more so than the sacrificial to other entity kind of dynamic that they have going on there. What did you think of that? Did it? What do you think?
I was surprised as well. I thought we were going to get kind of like cut and dry, like, wrapped up in a bow at the end. But no, it definitely raised some questions, which I think the short trek should do. It should, keep us, thinking and, looking forward to, obviously, the new season. But, one thing I did also love is that they kind of encapsulated a theme that has been prevalent through Star Trek since the beginning, is, to reach for the stars. I love the almost motivational and empowering theme of the episode, which I've seen before in other past, obviously, but it was nice to see that.
Yeah, I was that's probably my favorite thing about it. You know, the last sort of voiceover that Saru gives about, you know, he looked at the stars and found hope, and he went toward it. That gave me the chills. Like that's Star Trek.
Yes.
Like having hope for the future and that there's something better out there, and that was really effective to me. The ending is really powerful. And I didn't expect to see Georgiou. I didn't expect Michelle Yeoh to turn up as Lieutenant Georgiou from years in the past. Evidently, like a science officer, and it reminded me of, and I saw the writers kind of talking about in an interview that they referenced this episode. I don't know if you remember because you saw it in your run of rewatching TNG. It was Pen. Okay.
Can I reconnect your schedule? Okay, we're back. I think people were like, "Oh, you know, they're violating the Prime Directive." Well, I mean, there's already alien technology on this planet. Like, I feel like it's fine, you know.
Yeah. And I think one thing that if they're being true to like 23rd century Star Trek, the original series, is, you know, the Prime Directive might not be quite as they played a little more fast and loose with the Prime Directive in Kirk's time. Maybe, you know, I'm watching Bread and Circuses yesterday, and they beam down to this planet of primitive pre-warp people. They don't like change their costumes or anything. They just beam down their uniforms and they're, you know, walking around the desert trying to observe. Like, you know, there's precedent for you know, playing a little more fast and loose with that in the 23rd century. And I didn't have a problem with it. I thought because it's a single person who's making contact, you know, and she referenced it. She said, you know, there was a lot of discussion about it, and they made the decision to, you know, come say hello. I found I didn't have an issue with it, especially it being in the 23rd century. Even in the 24th century, you know, Data does it. And so there's a precedent for it. It's been done before, and it's as good of an explanation as any for, you know, Saru being where he is. You know, somehow he got off that planet, and they've pretty much made it clear that it's a, you know, a pretty warped civilization that he comes from. Like, how many different ways can he credibly leave that planet than what they did? So they found as good of a way as any to tie it in and you know, make his relationship with Georgiou even more sort of profound and meaningful, and have it make sense in the grand scheme of things. So I thought it was great. I thought that last 5 minutes of it, from the time the shuttlecraft lands and they have their dialogue, Georgiou and Saru, and through that ending monologue that we kind of both talked about. I think it was really flying high, like really good Star Trek. And I think what you said about leaving us wanting more is really good. I think all three of these, to some extent, have left us with some questions that are, you know, teasing us into more discovery. You know, the first one, even Runaway, it talks a lot about, you know, Tilly's movement into this command training program and finding the confidence to go into that, you know, headstrong and feeling good about herself. That's going to lead into season 2 and her character arc moving forward, I'm sure. This one obviously talks a lot about, you know, Saru's background and how he got to where he is, and leaves a lot of questions to be answered about the planet he comes from and how that whole dynamic works, which, you know, I think they announced pretty early on that there's an episode in season 2 where they do go to that planet. I know Georgiou says you can't ever go back, but something happens in season 2 where they go back. Evidently. So, and then in Calypso, the obvious is you know, what happened to the ship?
Yeah, why is it parked out there?
Why is it, alone and with orders not to move? So I think all three of these have sort of left breadcrumbs that are going to lead to more information as the show progresses, maybe beyond season 2 even. Like it's laying the groundwork for more stuff to come, which I think is a great reason for these things to exist. It's just giving teasing us for what's to come, as opposed to maybe telling like meaningless sort of one-off little short stories that don't really connect to anything. I think these are gonna add to the grander, the bigger picture when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect reason for them to be here.
Yep. I think it would be a fun episode to do kind of short track ideas for past series. Yes. So take like small little things, small characters, and kind of see what that would look like in like a short track form. So
we're 100% going to do that because that's a great idea, and that's all these other shows would have benefited from this sort of concept.
Yep.
To build the character development a little further out, and to be able to go back and tell like origin stories and just before the series started kind of things, fill gaps. I think that'd be really a neat thing to talk about. And now my head's spinning thinking about all these different characters from all these different shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, really cool. We'll definitely be doing that. Stay tuned.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did the episode end similarly to Calypso? Like there was a shuttle warp out? What was the ending on the first one? Runaway.
I think it was just didn't it end with the alien woman beaming down to the planet?
Yeah.
It just ends on Tilly's face, I think. But these last two absolutely both ended on a shuttle warping away.
Yeah.
Off to bigger and better things.
Just something I noticed, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah. How did you think in our like brief little 15-second clip? What did you think of the trailer for the next one, the Harry Mudd? Any thoughts? Not a whole lot to take away from.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. I've just always I think this one, besides the Saru one, is the most I'm anticipating the most. Just because I'm a huge Harry Mudd fan in the Discovery Harry Mudd, not so much TOS, but
TOS.
So it should be interesting. Should be fun.
Yeah, the title, The Escape Artist, and I think we saw Klingon briefly in that, might indicate that it might be about like how he gets off the prison ship and Choose Your Pain.
Yeah.
Remember at the end of Choose Your Pain, he's left on that ship, and out of nowhere in Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, he's off doing his thing.
Yeah. How did he get out of there?
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of figure that this short's going to tell that story, like bridge the gap between those two episodes, maybe.
Do you think Jason Isaacs will be back?
I don't know. That would be a stunner if he was in the short.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've seen Instagram posts or tweets with Jason Isaacs sort of, talking about connections with the Star Trek cast and being in Toronto. I don't know if you had they always have the Toronto Film Festival,
right?
Which is a really big deal that brings a lot of people to Toronto.
Yeah.
At that time. So I don't know if he was there for that, if he had a movie there or something, but I feel like there was definitely a point where I was like, oh crap, he's in Toronto. Like what's he doing there?
Yeah.
So and they've been the writers and the producers have definitely been like coy at convention appearances and stuff when people ask like, are we going to see Prime Universal Orca? Like, is he definitely dead? Is he going to turn up somewhere? Like they always give like coy, very non-answers. So it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere down the road, either in season 2 or further down the line, Jason Isaacs turns up again. But it possibly, maybe in the short, he would show up again.
Like a Giorgio kind of at the end, or just like a brief clip in the, I don't know.
Yeah.
In the middle. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? The way that this one played out with kind of a surprise, appearance by Michelle Yeoh, I didn't know. And that kind of tells us, be on your toes. You never know who'll turn up.
Yeah.
It certainly makes sense that anybody who's like a part of the show, because I guess from what I understand, they shot these like kind of as they went. Like when they had an opportunity, they would like throw these together and shoot them over a day. So anybody who's working on the show is certainly fair game, I guess, to potentially make an appearance.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about? I mean, this is like a kind of I don't know, an obvious question, I guess, but like, are these doing their job to like whet your thirst for season 2? Like, are they adequately getting you excited for season 2? Like, do you think they're a positive from that angle? Like, is this an effective way to build, anticipation for the season as we get closer to it?
I think this is it's doing its job for sure. It's getting people ramped up. I think it's doing a great job of not taking kind of Discovery out of the spotlight, and
Yeah.
I think it's doing a great job of getting us excited for season 2. I think this experiment, I'm guessing it was an experiment, will lead to kind of doing more of these kind of in the future, as kind of like a placeholder as they're finishing production and, you know, post and everything on the series. So, yeah.
Yeah, if their goal for the future is to kind of have most of the calendar with new Trek content, with multiple shows kind of happening at once, or multiple shows all kind of up in the air in production around the same time. Hopefully, you know, these can sort of maybe be the gap between, like, if they have 4 or 5 or 6 weeks between, you know, the end of one season and going into another show. These are the perfect, I think, things to sort of sprinkle throughout the year to, you know, fill out their calendar.
Yeah.
So I hope they continue to use them and, you know, find other cool ways to, you know, build out the timeline with them.
Right, and they could use them not just in, you know, TV and episodes. You know, they get it. You know, I know that Discovery has had novels and stuff. Like, they can lead into more novels, or you know, the Coven timeline has the comic book series. Like, it could lead into multiple different, you know, facets, not just episodes on TV. So
sure, yeah, it's definitely really encouraging and exciting to see them have this sort of opportunity to branch out and touch all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
The other real quick piece of news that kind of off of Discovery for a quick minute is, I guess there was some sort of like shareholders phone call with CBS All Access and their new executive at CBS, and the guy mentioned that the head of CBS mentioned that the Picard show, they're aiming for like an end of 2019 air date, which was really surprising. I didn't expect that. I thought that was going to be like 2020. 2020,
yeah, into beyond.
Yeah, 2021. You know, yeah, like I didn't expect such a quick turnaround on that. So that they're not messing around. You know, I would think
if they want to keep
talking about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
If they want to keep that timeline, they're gonna have to start production, you know, in the next few months. You know.
Yeah, and I feel like I saw somewhere, I can't cite a specific thing, but I was scrolling Twitter and I saw somebody say something about, you know, production slated to begin in April, which would make sense. I mean, if they're going to really aim to have this on the air by the end of 19, they would have to start production on the Picard thing very soon.
Yeah.
Which I just didn't expect. I didn't expect it to be that far along. And I guess thinking about, and I get it, like getting Discovery off the air is like the first thing, and kind of resuscitating this sort of dead, you know, behemoth thing that is Star Trek. It may be a little bit of a bigger mountain to climb, but you know, that experience of having that feel like it took forever, you know, like 3 years of time between, you know, the announcement that it's coming to it actually showing up. I thought that it was going to be a much longer wait, you know, considering that they just announced it in, I guess, August. That would be like less than a year and a half between announcing what the show was and who's in it to potentially airtime.
Airing that, yeah.
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they learn their lesson with, you know, giving
accurate.
Yes.
And sticking to what they say.
Yes. Don't tease people with unrealistic and unachievable, you know, start times, premiere dates. Hopefully if they say things like that, they're pretty close. Good about it. But if that's what they're doing, we're going to hear a lot more about it in the future. And it's going to get exciting to, you know, hear about casting and, you know, who's in it, what kind of characters we're getting, like that we all got that for Discovery, you know, but kind of slowly there was a slow drip of information with people being cast and brief one-line character descriptions and stuff like that. So I think that's not too far off in the future. I think we're going to have an exciting few months with Discovery Season 2 on the air and starting to get some word news about how that project's coming along and how close to production they're getting, and I'm sure we'll start hearing a little more about Lower Decks, the animated show. So 2019 is going to be a pretty big year for Trek, with season 2 of Discovery and multiple other things starting to develop into realities.
Yeah. Anything else on short treks? I feel like we've kind of covered.
I would just. Yeah, I would just want to reiterate that the tone of it, the optimistic, hope outweighed fear. I went towards hope kind of thing that Saru talks about at the end of it was very powerful and very Star Trek, and definitely my favorite thing about it, aside from the everything about it. It all worked for me. The production values, the performances of not just Doug Jones, who I think everybody expected to kill it,
but the supporting cast,
the sister and the father, who I hope we see more from, maybe in season 2 if they're actually going back there. Yeah, it's all exciting stuff that we got. So I really have nothing bad to say about it. Michelle Yeoh, I think, was awesome in her couple minutes of time.
Yeah.
How would you rank them so far? Like, do you feel good about sort of?
That was just my next question I was going to ask you, because you're I don't know, the ranking pro. I'll give mine. I would say this takes the cake. I think the Brightest Star, Calypso, and then obviously Runaway. So I think they're getting better as time goes on.
I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good at this point saying this is my favorite. And I think I'm gonna watch this one the most. I find myself having the easiest time just throwing this on for 15 minutes to kill time. But I don't know. It's close. I love Calypso. I've watched Calypso times. They're both really, really good. But I think the emotional connection to the character that we have with Saru, I think maybe is the tiebreaker for me. Yeah.
Overshadows it.
Yeah. Where Calypso, I think, is a little bit more of a standalone, kind of cool, outside, the box kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think makes it uniquely cool. That's what sets that apart, and I think makes it really special in its own right. But I think the emotional element of Brightest Star kind of takes the cake. So I'd say that, Calypso, and then Runaway.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good about that. But they've definitely gotten better. I think we talked liking Runaway and being excited about the format, but I think these two, at least for me, have made Runaway not look bad, but certainly maybe not quite as strong as these other two.
Yeah.
So any other Star Trek content that you've
I haven't listened to any podcasts this week. What about you? Do you have any Star Trek content or?
I should have been more prepared.
Yeah, me too.
Seeing as I just asked the question. Not a whole lot, no, to be completely fair. Other than I did listen to the live Trek FM conversation about this that I think came out yesterday. It was uploaded yesterday, I think. I know Trek Ranks just came out with a new episode.
Yep.
5 Wisest Characters, which I have not listened to yet, but it's on my agenda.
Yep.
But I've been slacking. I had a busy week. Didn't listen to a whole lot, but I have going away for a work conference Tuesday and Friday, and I'm gonna be in the car for 3-ish hours, both ways, and have a lot of time where I'm probably gonna have an earbud in. So I'm sure I'll put a dent in some of that backlog over the next week.
Yeah. Yes. I guess we can start winding it down. Speaking of next week, we will be back next week.
Mm-hmm.
To talk about more Star Trek. Topics still be determined to be locked in.
And then we'll be on hiatus for
yes,
a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Till after the New Year.
Yep.
But yeah, look for a topic announcement in the next few days, usually Tuesday-ish, Wednesday-ish.
Mm-hmm.
We'll roll out what we're going to talk about. So be on the lookout for that.
Yep.
And a lot of exciting stuff to come in 2019.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Beyond next week.
Yep. You guys know the drill. The discussion does not have to stop here. Definitely come over to Twitter. Check out Bill's Rewatch. Definitely check out our Discord channel. Get a topic going in there. Man, this has been episode 71 of Trek Live. A little bit shorter, a little bit scheduling was a little off. We apologize about that. And we'll be back next week.
See you next week. Thanks for watching.